going to stop over here, and I'm going to switch straight over into our final session, which is the lesson that we learn in the every morning we do over here a study on an introduction to Jewish spirituality and meditation through prayer. Our goal is to make our prayers more spiritual. If you have any comments on how this particular course is going, I would love to hear your feedback, because this is an extremely original course. I'm actually making it up as we go along, because I believe, as a Chabad rabbi on the front lines, that many people are turned off to Judaism at the very first step, at the very first point of entry. The minute they walk into a shul is when they get turned off, because they say, like, I don't understand what's going on over here. There's nothing spiritual about this, and I'm out. And that's why, as a Chabad rabbi, it's very, very important to me to be able to make that more of a meaningful encounter. You know, establishing a relationship with Almighty God, it doesn't come naturally or automatically. We are created beings with evil impulses and freedom of choice, and we'd far rather be enjoying ourselves physically with a pizza pie or ice cream or some other worldly pleasure, rather than experiencing an out-of-this-world pleasure, which is an encounter with God Almighty. So the first thing we have to realize is that a relationship with God doesn't come intuitively. It takes effort and energy to make that happen. But my goal in this course is to bridge the gap and to make it more spiritual, more meaningful as to when we engage with God in prayer. Mickey is saying, but which rabbi's law do we follow? A Passover, do we follow the Ashkenaz or Sephardic law? So the answer is you follow your rabbi. You're not supposed to follow every single rabbi out there, because there are conflicting opinions. And because it's godly law, both of them are correct. These and those are correct. Elo va'elo divrei Elokim chaim. Both of them are the words of the living God. When it comes to a human law, only one can be right. You're either right or wrong, you're either up or down, you're either black or white. But when it comes to God Almighty, God who is infinite, it can be black and white at the same time. I remember when I was a rabbinical student in Melbourne, Australia, I would fight vehemently with my chavrusa, with my study partner. We'd argue a lot about the interpretation of the law, and we would not resolve our conflict. We would come into the exam, and the question was asked. I remember the teacher would always give us like a question and like 2 lines to answer. And I would write like a page and a half every time, every question. He would give us like 2 pages of questions. I'd give him like a stack of pages of answers. And we would come to different conclusions. I would argue why it's kosher. He would argue why it's treif. I would argue why you're allowed to. He would argue why it's not allowed to. And both of us gave a thesis, an explanation, justifying our positions. And both of us got 100% for the answer. And that's because if you can justify your explanation, then you're right. So when the Ashkenazi rabbis say that you're not allowed to eat rice on Passover, and the Sephardic rabbis explain that you are allowed to eat rice on Passover, they're both right. As long as you go by your rabbis, by your tradition, and you don't mix and match, because that would be considered intellectually dishonest. You got it, Warren. Thank you. I'm glad that that you agree with my explanation. Fantastic. Good. So let's go straight into it over here. Got to go. Thank you for learning. Rob, thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Briskin. And thank you for being a healthcare provider at this very difficult time, and for doing whatever you need to do to keep us all safe. So I'm going to proceed. We are starting to wrap up over here, guys, in our first mitzvah, prayer. We took on one single prayer, a very easy prayer that everybody knows. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Nice and easy prayer. And the goal of this course is that you become intimately familiar with certain words, these words, the Hebrew word diary, that you become intimately familiar with it. The goal is that you make flashcards out of these words, so that you review them many times in one day until they literally become a part of your lexicon, to the point that you can actually use them in conversational Hebrew. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yes, you can. You can do this. You can speak Hebrew. It is not difficult. Even at your age and even in your circumstance, taking on my course, taking on my regimen of study, you can do this. There's only 15 words that we've taken on so far. These 15 words can by now become your part of your lexicon. You can do this by just writing them up on flashcards. You can review them every day, and they become part of your lexicon. If you missed any of our classes, go to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens and go to the top of the page where it says playlists, and you'll see all the classes on this course, Introduction to Jewish Spirituality and Meditation Through Prayer. You can do all the classes over there, even if you missed them. You can catch them all up, fill up your Hebrew word diary, you can review it, and make sure that you are spiritualizing your prayer. Now, the prayer that we're finishing today is Baruch Atah Havaya, Elokeinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We've got the last 4 words, which we're going to be explaining today. We explained Baruch Atah Havaya Elokeinu melech haolam. Yesterday, we even explained Asher Kiddushanu, which is a different prayer, which is the blessing before you do mitzvahs. But now we're doing the suffix, the very end of this prayer, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, which means who takes out bread from the earth. That's what we're doing over here. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who takes out the bread from the earth. We've got 4 words, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. All of these 4 words are very fundamental words. We might not finish it today. We'll just take it on slowly. We're doing 1 word at a time. I'd like to explain these 4 words as fundamental words to our Hebrew word diary. If you can adopt these words, then you will be able to really have a far greater context in being able to speak Hebrew and understand Hebrew. The goal over here is for you to be able to be very familiar with the same word whenever it shows up. Remember, the way Hebrew works is by roots. It's on a doctrine of roots. And the doctrine of roots means that you'll find the same 3 letters with a slightly different prefix or a slightly different suffix or maybe a little letter in the middle. But when you find these 3 letters in sequence, you'll know what it means. The root of the word is always the same. Think of Hebrew like a donut, where, you know, in the radio, they say you make a donut ad. Like a radio commercial, you make a donut ad, which means if you want to market, let's say you want to market our Unity concert, right? So they say you keep the music at the beginning, at the end, and you only change the message in the middle. You just keep on changing the message in the middle, right? And that's how you're able to make many, many ads without so much work. So the opposite is true of Hebrew, where the root always stays the same. When you want to say motzi, motzi means to take something out, to remove. If you want to take something out, you take the word motzi, and the root of that word, I'm just going to find it for you here. The root of that word is mem, tzadik, and aleph. I'm going to find it for you in just a second. Don't go away if my letters are a little bit mixed up right now. Sorry. Here. Here, okay. So here are our letters. The first letter we know is mem. We've learned about this letter. It looks like a mountain. It's got a base. It's got a peak, and it's got a flag on top of the summit. Whenever you see a letter that looks like a mountain, you know that this letter is a mem. Mem for mountain. The next letter is the letter tzadik. Tzadik, we never learned this letter before. This letter is twisted like a pretzel. When you see a letter that's twisted like a pretzel, you know that that letter is a tzadik. Pretzel reminds us of the tzaddik. The letter ayin looks similar to it, but it's a very different letter. They're actually adjacent. They're very close to each other in the alphabet. These letters are different. The ayin, it looks more like 2 eyes. When you see the eyes, like a silent pair of eyes, like eyes, somebody staring at you, it's just a silent letter. Just it's actually a guttural letter. Sephardic Jews, whenever they speak, they're like, well, if they say a guttural letter like that, they're saying the letter ayin. But the letter tzadik is different. It's got more of a foundation, more of a base over there. It's kind of similar. It could be a little confusing. You got to practice this. And if you don't have it yet, please download the app RIIH. Read it in Hebrew, which is an app on the Play Store or the Google App Store. Sorry, the App Store or the Google Play Store. It's $1.99, and I highly encourage you to download this app so that you have the flashcards that I'm holding right now that will allow you to become intimately familiar by recognizing these letters, by reviewing them multiple times a day. If you've downloaded the app, go through it regularly so that you can see the letter and guess the meaning of it, and then see the answer to make sure that you're doing it right. And actually, we'll have an audio for you there as well to tell you how to pronounce the letter and giving you the codes, how to remember it. RIIH is the app that I'd like you to download. It's $1.99, well worth the investment, and good thing for you to do. So this is the letter tzadik, not to be confused with the letter ayin here, tzadik. So it's the second letter of our root letter today. We've got the mem, the tzadik, and the aleph. The aleph is the third letter. Aleph is silent, it has no sound of its own. And when you put these 3 letters together, you have the word matzah, which means to find, it also means to take something out, motzi. In the context of this blessing, it means God, you're recognizing God as the one who took the bread out of the ground, as God as being the governor of the universe, the almighty being, the power that controls the universe that took the bread out of the ground. So why is the same word meaning finding and also meaning taking it out? Because obviously when you find something, you're taking it out of where it is already. I'm going to write this down over here so we can add it to our word diary. That's the word, the 16th word, which is matzah. It actually sounds like matzah, like the matzah of the Passover. Matzah, which means found or remove, right? And why is it matzah? No, matzah is a different word. Okay, so if you thought that sounds like the word matzah, it's not the word matzah. And I'll tell you why it's not the word matzah. So this word was this, matzah with aleph, right? But the word matzah that we eat is a very different word. Very important for you to understand this difference. Here it is. The matzah that we eat is not matzah with an aleph, it's matzah with a hey. Matzah with a hey is the matzah that we eat. If it has a hey, it's a completely different root, and hence a completely different word. I know it sounds the same. The matzah that we eat has a hey at the end. The matzah that we find is with an aleph. And actually, in the sequence of the Seder, you'll find that after reading the Haggadah, we wash our hands, and then we go through something called motzi matzah. Motzi matzah. Tell me, folks, if you know what that means based upon what we just learned. Motzi matzah. Please, folks, I hope that you can answer this question for me. Why would we say motzi matzah, a double expression of matzah in the Seder sequence? The reason is because the first motzi is spelled mem tzadik aleph. The second matzah is spelled mem tzadik hey, which means removing the matzah. That's what we're doing in the Seder. We're taking out the matzah. And that's why we make the blessing on the matzah. Hamotzi lechem mina aretz, who removes the bread from the earth. Okay? So that's the that is the meaning of the motzi matzah. So we're going to do one more word over here now, and that would be this next word of lechem. Lechem is another very important word which often comes up in our prayers. And the reason why it's such a common word is because lechem often represents our physical support, our physical sustenance, that God provides us with bread. We ask God for bread, not because we like the carbs. I think bread is carbs. Am I right? Bread, carbs? I think it's carbs. But anyways, not that God needs that we want carbs necessarily, but because bread represents sustenance and support. So you'll find this word coming up very, very often in our prayers. And that's why I want you to adopt this word as well into your lexicon, that lechem, into your Hebrew word diary. Lechem means bread. You'll see the word often. When you see it, you'll know the context. The first one is a letter that we've already learned, is a lamed, which is the lanky letter that goes up above the line. It's lanky. The second letter is the ches, which is not to be confused with the hey. The hey's got a little break over here on the side. It's got a broken leg. That's why it's hey, you got a broken leg, or hey, you got a breath of fresh air. That's the hey. But the ches just looks like a chuppah. Because it looks like a chuppah, that's why it's a ches letter. And the third letter is the mem letter, which is the letter we just spoke about. The letter looks like a mountain. Remember, in Hebrew, when 5 letters are at the very end of a word, they actually change format and they become end letters. Just like in English, we have capital letters at the beginning of a sentence. So too, beginning of a sentence, in Hebrew, at the end of a word, 5 of the letters actually change their format from that to a closed up mem. This is a closed up mem. It's a final mem. Looks marvelous. This is what the word lechem looks like. And when you see this word lechem, you're talking about bread. Not much meditation over here that I can think of. Motzi, lechem. We're just going to keep it moving. Motzi, lechem. I can't think of too much meditation. Lechem. Bread. Lechem is bread. Why? What's the meditation of bread? I can't think of it right now. Had a late night last night, folks. I'm sorry, my daughter was keeping me up till 2:30. She refused me to leave her bed, so that was a little rough when your 2-year-old does that. But hey, maybe my mind is not as fresh as it should be. But anyways, not everything has a meditation to it, at least not that I can think of, and I'm trying my best. So maybe we could just finish this right now with 2 more words. The word min means from. Min is from, and that is a very short word. It's a mem nun. Here you go, the letter mem and the letter nun. Min, when these 2 letters come together, it means from. Min. Min means from. You know, the letter nun at the end of a word also changes its format. It's one of the 5 letters that changes at the end of a word, and it becomes, it kicks out a kickstand. It becomes from a resting leg. It goes beneath the line and becomes a long leg, like this. And it becomes a long nun, right? Its base swings downward like it looks like a paper fastener. That's what it looks like. So it's min. Now, min means from. It also is the name of the manna. It's the name of the manna that the Jewish people ate for 40 years in the desert. Now, I wonder, what's the connection? Monhu. Mon. The reason why it's called manna is because they couldn't identify where it came from. It just appeared miraculously every morning. The manna in the desert for 40 years, it literally appeared every morning. And that's what they ate for 40 years. It tasted like anything they wanted it to taste like. And it was miraculous food. They never had to go to the bathroom for 40 years because this food was fully absorbed into every aspect. Every part of the food was absorbed into their bodies. There was no waste. So they literally did not need to go to the bathroom for 40 years. It was truly miraculous food. And that's the reason why we eat challah on Shabbos, because on Fridays they got a double portion. There was no manna that appeared on Shabbos. Shabbos is the day of rest. They didn't have to go to the field to bring it in. So on Fridays we got a double portion. That's why we have 2 challahs on Shabbos. And the reason that we cover the challah with a cloth is because the manna appeared on a Friday every day with a layer of dew beneath it and a layer of dew above it. It was freshly packaged. So too, we receive the manna in the desert. We eat the challah, with a white tablecloth below and another tablecloth above, that little challah tablecloth. That's the reason that we eat the challah on Shabbos, 2 challahs. So the manna was called manna because it didn't know where it came from. It was like miraculous. And you know what the blessing that they said on the manna? Instead of saying, Amotzi lecha mina aretz, who brings the bread out of the earth, they would say, Amotzi lecha mina shamayim, for blessing God who brought the bread out of heaven. So because they didn't know where it came from, min, therefore they called it manna. And that's the thought here. It's an interesting meditation that I'd like you to consider when you think about manna, in the sense that when we eat our bread, you can meditate upon the fact that the bread that you eat actually comes from God. When you make the blessing, Hamotzi lechem mina aretz, this is a really nice meditation to think about. When you think about the fact that, remember, the purpose of this class is 3 levels. Number 1 is reading, to know how to read. Number 2, to understand what you read. And number 3, to understand the meditation. So it's a very important word here because, you know, our biggest challenge is providing financial support to our families. For many of us, it's our biggest challenge. And we feel that we have to, you know, we've got to like twist ourselves into a pretzel to be able to support for our families. But when you believe that you are the one providing the support for your family or for yourself, if you are the bread winner, then you're actually denying the governance of God upon you. It's a lack of faith. But when you make the blessing, Hamotzi lechem mina aretz, you're not only recognizing that God brought the bread out of the ground by causing the wheat to grow, but you're also recognizing the fact that God is providing for my financial support through my real estate investments, through my stock market investments, through my salary that I receive from my employer. Whatever your source of revenue, your source of income, you're recognizing that it is God that causes the bread to grow from the ground. So it's not me that's the breadwinner. It is God that is my breadwinner. And the beautiful, you know, there was a time in the days of Jeremiah when the Jewish people, complained to Jeremiah that they couldn't afford to live a proper Jewish life because they had to support themselves. So Jeremiah said, "You fools! Why do you think that you're supporting yourselves? That you don't have time to pray? That you don't have time to serve God? God is the source of your blessing." And what he did was he took out the pitcher of manna that was one of the few items that was stored in the temple. Moses actually instructs Aaron to store a pitcher of manna. You were not allowed to save manna overnight. It was a rejection of the trust in God. If you would use up your manna before, if you would store manna for the next day, as if you weren't trusting in God that there'd be manna tomorrow. You had to finish all of your resources before you went to sleep, so that tomorrow you start all over again, because God will provide for me every single day. So Moses tells Aaron to to store a pitcher of manna in the Holy of Holies to serve as an eternal reminder of the Jewish people of the source of our blessing, the source of our livelihood, the source of our money. So in the days of Jeremiah, when the people felt that they didn't have time to pray, to serve God, they were too busy making a living, he brings out the pitcher of manna to show them, look, God provided for our people, 3 million people approximately in the desert. For 40 years, if you could provide for them, he'll provide for you too. When you make this blessing, this is the crux of the meditation. The crux of the meditation of saying, Amotzi lechem min haaretz, is thinking that God is the one that took the bread out of the earth. And the word min, from, also means manna, so that you can meditate upon the fact that the bread that I'm eating that comes from the earth could for the same price have come out of heaven, because God is the ultimate provider of my money, my livelihood, my sustenance, and my success and my prosperity. By meditating upon this fact, you mitigate the fear and the anxiety of not being able to provide, because you know that no matter where the economy is, no matter how bad or good things are, I am always exclusively in the hand of Hashem. It's not God and Trump. It's not God and the economy, not God and the unemployment numbers. It's God alone that is providing for me. And that's the meditation that you're supposed to be thinking about when you say the blessing on the manna, on the bread. This food that I'm eating is actually manna. And just like God provided so abundantly for all of our needs in the desert, so too God provides for all of our needs today as well. 3,332 years later, nothing has changed. As long as I can remain clear in the source of my blessing, that blessing will continue to flow. During coronavirus, God wants us, I believe, God wants us to notice him and to reestablish and deepen our connection with him. When we make a blessing over food, over bread, which is the staple of our livelihood, of our food, and we recognize that the source of that bread is from God directly, when we do that, then what's happening is that we are opening the pipes of our blessing so that God will support us abundantly. Andy's question, Torah is referred to as lechem. Please explain beyond the obvious that we need Torah to live. So where did you say that Torah is referred to as lechem? Let me think about that. I'm sure there's a metaphor of Torah being referred to as lechem, but can you, Andy, be more specific about where the Torah is referred to as lechem? I can tell you that in the context of Tanya chapter 5, the Torah is referred to as bread, and the way the Alter Rebbe explains that is that just like the bread that we eat becomes physically a part of our physical being, our body, so too when we study Torah, which is the wisdom of God, and God and his wisdom are one. God and his wisdom are one. That's the basic principle in spirituality. Therefore, when we study Torah, we are ingesting not just God's wisdom, which is becoming a part of my brain, indiscernible, indifferentiable, unable to be differentiated from me or my brain. God's wisdom and my brain become enmeshed and one, united, inseparable. Since God and his wisdom are one, therefore God himself is becoming a part of me. And that's why how the Alter Rebbe explains that Torah is called bread. Because God has given us the ability to unite with him, to make him a part of us. And that's why it says that in the place that you find God's greatness, that's where you'll find his humility. That God allowed us the ability to become one with him, to become intimate with him through the study of Torah. He gave us this gift, which is Torah, so that we can eat it up. We can study it like bread. And then like bread, it becomes a part of us. The Torah, the wisdom becomes a part of our brain. And God becomes a part of us. That's why it's so important, friends, to study Torah every single day, to illuminate your mind. I got to tell you, when I study Torah every day, it illuminates my mind and it blesses my entire day. And I want to encourage you to take advantage of a special offer that's going on right now, which is Torah delivered to your door. Weekly Torah study delivered to your door. It's called Chayenu. I know Warren is a big fan of it. Chayenu, Chayenu, Chayenu.org. If you go to Chayenu.org for $20, you get 6 weeks of Chayenu Torah pamphlets delivered to your door. During this quarantine, you know that you need it. Andy, I would love to see you engage with this, to subscribe to it. Just $20, you'll have Chayenu delivered to your door, and you'll be able to study Torah every single day from the original. It's the weekly Torah study in English. It's the Torah, it's the Tanya, it's the Tehillim of the day, it's the Maimonides of the day. It's beautiful stuff in there. Keep you really busy to allow you to make Torah like bread, to ingest the Torah into you. With this, I'm going to sign off. It's chayenu.org. Just look for the sale, $20 for 6 weeks of quarantine special. I want you to know, oh, by the way, just for a disclaimer, Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens and Rabbi David Vigler do have shares in chayenu.org. That is spiritual shares. So when you study Torah with Chayenu, we all benefit. So I'm certainly vested in this. We all benefit from each other. We are all interconnected. When you study Torah, it serves to the benefit of all of us. We've added 2 more words, our Hebrew word, Dari. I'm going to write them over here. You'll see them tomorrow. They are lechem, which means bread, and man, or min, which means from. And that's why it's called the manna, because the very meditation of the bread, of the eating of the bread, is reminding us where the real bread comes from, not from the kitchen, not from the restaurant, not even from the earth. It comes from God, just like God provided for all of our needs in the desert. God can and will provide for us in 2020 as well. There is no fear. There is no anxiety. There is only trust in the almighty, all-kind, powerful being of the universe. Thank you, friends, for joining me here today. Thank you. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you tomorrow morning, and stay tuned for the Torah class on Mashiach, which I'm looking to introduce maybe in the evenings. I'm thinking like 9 o'clock. Tell me what you think about it before I let you go. Do you think like 9 p.m. to do a few minutes of Mashiach, what it's going to be like when Mashiach comes? You think that could work? I think I'm going to do that 9 p.m. every night during quarantine. I'm going to do Torah study on Mashiach. Let me know what you think about that, folks. All right. Stay tuned, and we'll see you there. In fact, you know what? Can we commit to that right now? Let me know if there's anybody here that tells me that you think it's a good idea to do 9 o'clock tonight. If I know that I have a couple people committed, then it's going to give me an inspiration to make it happen. Thank you, Susan. Have a great day. Bob Wordheimer, have a wonderful day. Andy, you think it's a good idea to do 9 o'clock tonight? If you're with me, then I think I'm going to do it. 9 o'clock tonight, we'll do a few minutes of Mashiach study. We'll take it from there, guys. See you later. Shalom, and be safe. Have a great day.